Hi, this is Johan with Appivo again. This time I'm going to show you how to build a simple application from scratch without using the wizard. The focus here will be looking at data modeling and the use of forms. So let's get going. I'm going to choose to create an advanced app. And let's start with the data model. I go to Logic, Models, and New Model. So I was thinking that we will create a simple application that will keep track of all my books. So I'm going to call this data model book. And notice here that there are different types of data models. I'll choose data, which is a simple collection of fields, strings, integers, booleans, etc. I may also choose document as a type. Document means that I can store a binary as a Word document, an Excel sheet, or an image, or a video, or an audio file. I don't need that right now, so let's get going with a pure data model. We can also select how the model should be created. From scratch means that I define all the attributes and characteristics of this model. But I could also choose to import from our template set, or I could choose to import from another application, which is a simple means of doing integrations between Appivo applications. But let's move forward here. All right, now I have my book model. I'll double click on it. This allows me to add attributes. One thing to be aware of here is that the system also adds some basic system attributes that are not visible here, but that you can use in your applications. Every model has an ID attribute. This is an attribute that you can use to uniquely identify individual records of a model. There's also a version attribute. It's called ver, that keeps track of the version of the record itself, and it will increment by 1 every time the record is updated. So it will start at 0. Then there are 2 timestamp attributes, created at and updated at. And as you might guess, the created at attribute will tell you when the record was first created, and the updated at attribute will tell you when the record was last updated. So let's go ahead here and add okay, I want to add an attribute called title. That's a string. I will call it title. And we can see here, I can double click here to change the type, but I'm happy with string. I'll want to make this required. And we can also edit advanced properties by clicking this pen here. We can see we have some other options here. I'm not going to go into those right now. Data type and size. Let's say 48 is the default number of characters, but we want to allow for a slightly longer title than that, so let's increase this to 100. There should be no default value for the title. Okay, now we have our title. What else should we have? Well, let's say author. Author, we want to know who authored the book. Okay, author is also required, and we might want to increase the size of the author field as well to 100. Okay. And what else? Let's say we also want to keep track of what year the book was published. So we'll add an integer field. And we'll make that required as well. Let's edit that as well. And let's see, okay, it's required, integer. Well, it should be unsigned. We cannot have a negative value for year. All right. So now we have title, author, and published. Let's stop there for now. That should be sufficient for our very basic model of a book. All right, so what's the second thing you need to do here? Well, one thing that is always good to remember is to add privileges. Now, this is a new app, so we don't have any roles. So let me add a role called admin, and the admin should be allowed to do everything with books. So let's just select all the privileges. Okay, that will take care of allowing our users, or at least our first user, to interact with the model. Now let's create a simple interface, user interface. We'll create a web interface. Okay, and let's add a view. Let's add a view for creating records of our book model. Now, we could choose to auto-generate a form view here, and it will just create it for you in less than a second, but that won't actually explain to you how this all works. So let's start with a blank template. Here you can choose different kinds of layouts. We'll just go with a very basic blank layout with no dividers. Okay, and let's call it create book. Okay. Now you'll notice here, this is our canvas, and here's our widget palette. These are categories. You know, this one will show you all the widgets. This one will show you just the basic ones, form-related ones, which we'll be interested in right now, data-related ones, and panels and others. So you'll also notice that we have a tab called Forms here, another called View. So now if I click on Forms, we'll see there's nothing here, but I can add a form. So let's do that. Okay. So now what are we looking at? Well, I can name my form. Well, we want to use a form for creating books. So let's call it book form. And we need to connect this to a model. Now we only have one model, so it was pre-selected, book. Fine. It has no parent. This is a concept that we'll dive into in a later tutorial, but it has to do with modeling more complex forms where you can have parent-child relationships between different forms. Here's another thing that might be useful. You see fixed attributes as this tab right here. This allows you to preset values for certain fields that you don't want to display in the UI, but you still want to populate them as part of your form. For instance, let's say, I always want to make sure that that the published field is filled out with a fixed value. So I click here, value, and I type, okay, this is only for books published in the year of 1972. Okay, fine. Now, this is arguably a good idea, but just to show you how it works. So let's unselect that again. Okay, now our form is ready. So let's save that. We'll see we have our book form here. Now I can start connecting widgets to that form. So let's say as we recall, we have a title, an author, and a published field. So now if we click on the form category here, it will show us all the fields, all the widget types that can be connected to form elements. We want to start with the title field. A text field would be appropriate for connecting that. I drop that there, and now you'll notice here that the editor chose to connect this to a form that it found, the book form. That's the only one we have so far. It also chose to connect this field to an attribute. It will scan the form for attributes of the appropriate type, in this case string, and it found title and author, and it picked the first one, which was title. Okay, that's exactly what we wanted. Now we'll see the max length here is 100. Well, sorry, it's not 100, it's 48, so let's increase that. And no validation. There are other options you can add here for validation and error messages and prompts, etc., but let's skip that for now. Okay, let's click OK. Okay, we have our field. All right, maybe I want to place it there. Maybe I want to make it slightly longer like that. And okay, and maybe also I want to place a label on top of it. So I'll just drag. So now maybe I also want to place a label on top of it. So I'll just drag a label here. We'll put title. Okay. Like so. And back. And now I want to add my author field. So we'll do one more text field. And this time choose to connect it to the author attribute. All right, let's make that a little longer as well. Move it down a bit. And let's add a label for that one as well. Okay. And well, we know we want the published year as well, so we'll add that while we're at it. Published year. And now for this one, we'll need to use a different field. Oh, I'm clicking the wrong one. We should now connect this using a number field, because an integer is a numeric data type. And we see here that it connected again to the book form, and it found two numeric attributes, ver, which is the version attribute I told you about earlier, and published. So we'll select published. Now we can also select a minimum value that we want to accept here. Well, let's say, well, realistically, we're not going to be managing books that are published before the year 1700, let's say, and also not beyond year 2100. Okay. Decimals, well, we're not going to have any decimals. We also don't want to have any formatting. You typically don't use separators when formatting a year, so we'll skip that. Okay, we have our year, and this one we can probably make a little bit smaller instead, like so. All right, our form is essentially ready, but now what's missing? Well, we need to be able to submit the form. So again, I'll pick the basic category and let me add a button. I'll drop that there and we'll say save. Maybe I want the color to be green. And now I need to add an event. So I can click the event tab here and I'll see that the button has 4 different events that it emits. I want to manage the click event, so I click add here. And now we see we can use a quick action. This is a very common task, so we'll see what actions are available. Whoa, see, submit form. That's exactly what we want. So I'll pick that one. And which form do I want to submit? Well, I want to submit our book form. Include child forms. Well, we don't need to care about that. We don't have any. After submitting, do nothing, go back, close, refresh a widget. Well, we can do nothing here at this point. We don't have any other views, and this is not a dialog, so all right. Okay, I'm done. Now, often you'll also have a cancel button that would discard the data or navigate back. Now, in our case, we don't have any other views yet, but let's add a button for navigating back to wherever we came from in case we cancel. So let's just add cancel and let's make that red. And our event handler, click and just choose go back when this is clicked. All right, now our form is actually all ready. So I'll choose to save my application. Okay, it's saved. Now let's test drive the application by clicking the preview button down to the left. This opens up a separate window where I can see my actual application running. So here's the form we just created. We can see all the fields. Let's try to create a book. Let's call it Building Awesome Apps with Appivo by Johan Eriksson. And let's leave out the published year field, see what happens. Ah, this value is required. Please correct errors before submitting. Okay, enter 1972, try again. Ah, it worked. So now we created a book, but there's no place to view it. So what do? Well, let's go back to the editor again. Let's add another view. Let's start with a blank template again. Let's call this list books. Okay. And now for viewing a list of books, a data grid would be appropriate. So let's drag that out. And you'll notice the data grid automatically got connected to our book model because that's the only one we have. Typically, you would probably connect your grid to a query, but let's keep it simple here. Connecting it straight to the model means it will show all available records. We don't need a summary that's used for numeric data. We don't need to use transactions. I can click here on the columns tab. If I want to reorder the columns, I can just do so by dragging them. I can also change the width of the columns by double clicking here. I can make them editable, and I can also edit advanced properties like formatters, etc. on these if I want to change anything. But let's stay away from that for now. Okay, let's do that. Let's see here. Now you'll notice it's actually connected to our data already. It shows the book that I just entered. I will drag this around, try to place it and resize it a little bit. And okay, that's good. Let's add a label on top. Call this my books. Okay, maybe we want to resize that a little bit. Choose styling. Okay, that's good. Apply. All right, we're done. However, now we have two views in our user interface. Create book and list books. So how did the system know which of these should be the default view when you enter the application? Well, you have to tell it. And you can do so by clicking the settings button up here and edit the web UI itself. You'll see that there's a tab called Initial Views. So let's add an initial view. You can actually have multiple, and that's because these are evaluated one by one, and the first one that the user has privileges enough to see is the one that he'll be allowed in on. Now I added one. Let's pick. I want list books to be the primary view. Okay. Now if I save again, we do another preview. Okay, and now we got our list view, and we can see the book we just created. However, there's no way to navigate around. There's no way to add a book, or there's no way to edit this book. So let's again head back to the builder and make some changes. Let's add a button for creating a new book. Say create book. Okay, let's have that be blue color, and let's add an event handler. So what should we do? When we click this button, we want to navigate to a view. Which view? Well, the create book view. Okay, great. Let's try that. I'll save again. Okay, now we have a button here to create a new book. So let's add War and Peace by Dostoevsky, 1852. I'm not sure. All right, we have another book. However, this did not navigate back. Let's see what we did here. Now if we go to the create book view, the event here, edit. See, after submitting, do nothing. We want to go back. Okay, perfect. And now go back to the list view. Let's add the ability to edit a record. So let's add a row double click event handler. Now, if I double click on a row, what should happen? Well, I want to go to a view. Which view? Create book. And I want to get a record to open in the view. Which one? Well, I want to get the one from datagrid 0. This will pick the active record in this widget, which in our case will be the one I clicked on. So let's do that. Okay. I'll save. And we'll test drive again. right, now we have now let's double click on War and Peace. Oh, War and Peace. Well, maybe I spelled this wrong, I'm not sure. So let's put it like that instead. Save again. Yeah, okay, we have our edit done. The only thing we're missing now is the ability to delete the book. So how would we do that? Let's try. We could use a context menu on the row. Let's do that. Add menu. Oh, sorry, not menu. Add item. Add an item. Let's edit this. Let's call it delete. The action should be delete the active record. You'll notice that often these quick actions are context sensitive. Depending on where you're at, different options will appear. So this here only makes sense for a data grid, deleting the active record, that is. But that's great. Let's pick it. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's hit save again. And let's test drive. Okay, now let's see. I right click. Yeah, delete. Record is gone. Okay, that's all for now. We will continue evolving this application a little bit to show some more complex cases, but this is all for this tutorial. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.